Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, All Things Art. My name is Eric, and in today's project we have another repaint on another Sideshow Collectibles statue. This time around it's going to be Eddie from the rock band Iron Maiden. So now this statue right here was just announced about a year ago and it's just starting to ship. The collector that received this wasn't happy with the way the skin tones look like, if that's even the right word to use, being he's a skeleton, but we'll go with skin tones. But yeah, basically he opened it up and just wasn't happy with the way it looked. So the way the skin are, the skull looks right now and, the hand and everything, the colors are very whitish looking. It's like a bone white, basically what a skeleton would, look like. But if you follow Sideshow Collectibles, they actually put out every once in a while a behind the scenes on how they paint their statues. And they did this video with the master painter, and he's showing the whole process of how the statue was painted. And when he's painting the statue, the colors that he's using is more of like a zombie looking greenish tone instead of what we received here, which is white. So he wasn't happy with it. I think he was at the point where he was just thinking about returning it. And I said, you know what? Hand it off to me. I'm going to fix it for you and we'll get it looking right. We'll get it looking like the prototype, because like I said, in the prototype, it's more of a green color, but in production, it's more of a whitish, bone white color. So now, listen, any statue you get, that's going to happen. The prototype is never going to match the production 100%. Now, it should match at least 90%. You're talking about a master in-house painter at Sideshow who's painting maybe one or two of these, versus when it heads over to China and they're mass producing like 500 to 1,000 of these things. Not everything's going to match up, and they're going to paint it quickly and it's not going to look the same. But with that said, like I said, he was at the point to where I think he was going to return it, and I said, it's a simple fix. So there's three ways I'm thinking about going into this and trying to fix the skin tones, because basically it's just the portrait, and then he has his arms and hands showing, and then there's a little bit of a skin showing on the shoulder where the shirt is ripped, or the jacket is ripped, I should say. So two ways I'm experimenting with in my head is, one, mixing up a greenish color to match the prototype and doing a transparent overlay, because the way the colors are right now, they're actually very good as far as like the shading and the highlighting goes. It's just the actual color itself is off from the prototype. So I can do a transparent overlay and hope that that works with acrylic paints. If that doesn't work, I could also try doing a overlay with some inks. Again, using that same green tone, and try to do like an ink wash and try to try to tint the color. Being it's bone white, it's practically a blank canvas, so I think I might be able to tint it. And worst case scenario, if none of those two methods work, I'm just going to go in and base coat it the right color, the right color green from scratch. I'll base coat the hands, base coat the portrait, and I'll go back in and redo the shading and highlighting. It's not that much work. So those are the methods I'm thinking about in my head right now as a way to approach this and get it looking correctly. So with that said, I'm going to give you an up-close shot to show you what I'm talking about and give you like a little 360 of the way the paint is looking right now. As mentioned, it's more of like a bone color white, and we want to get it back to looking like the prototype, which was more of like a zombie green color. So let me show you that, and I'll put up some examples on the video as like a pop-up so you can see the before and after of the prototype and the production, and we'll get this project started. So let's go. All right, and here's how he's looking up close. And as you can see, the paint is actually very nicely done. You have nice highlights and all different shading going on. It's just that main base color is more of like a like a bone or tannish white, to where it should have been more of a greenish color. So we have a little bit showing right there that would have to get repainted. Obviously the portrait, we have the hands, one holding the sword and then the other holding the flag. And I'll just give you a quick overview of the entire statue because it is pretty cool. The paint on Eddie himself is really nice. like with the bandages and all, the weathering and stuff that's going on with the boot. And the jacket, it's got some really nice, shading, and everything so far with the paint looks really nice. The base is a little bit simple, the way they painted that. Nothing fantastic, but, that's not the main star of the show. Eddie is. But overall, this is a really cool looking statue. So, like I said, it's just that, the collector that sent this to me, he wanted it more greenish looking. And also, he didn't like the way the eyes are popping out to where you could see the pin. If you see that little pin behind the eyeball, it extends all the way towards the back. Might not show up too good in camera, but you could definitely see it a lot more in person. So we're going to blend that in. I'll probably just paint it black so it hides in the eye socket and you don't see that. But basically the portrait is attached to the body, so that doesn't come off. So I'll just have to mask off the neck area, the jacket and everything before I start so I don't get any overspray. But the good thing is that the hand is removable, so I can remove the hand and work on that separately. And this hand is also removable, so I can, take that off and work on that separately. I just got to mask off the sword and mask off the flag. So that's good that I can remove those. And like I said, I'll just give you a quick overview of him because he is a cool looking statue. Okay, so we got, the 666 patch on it. He's got like a canteen down here, the backpack. So overall, the paint is actually really nice. So we're not going to do anything else to the statue because I think it looks good. Even got some great weathering on the flag. This is all sculpted. It's kind of like a PVC plastic material. So really cool statue. But we're just going to go in, and like I said, I'm either going to try to tint this color a different shade, try to get that green shade in there as far as the base color goes, with either a transparent overlay or an ink overlay. And then, like I said, if those two don't work, I gotta experiment off camera with the paint methods and seeing what I want to do with it and what looks best. I won't know until I spray it. And worst case, if that doesn't work, then like I said, I'll just redo the whole entire thing. I'll redo the portraits and that small area there and then the hands. So we're going to try the easy way first. And then if that doesn't work, I'll step it up and just redo the whole entire thing. It's not that terrible. Painting skulls is kind of fun, so I don't mind it. But yeah, he's really cool looking. And yeah, enjoy the process and stay tuned for the final outcome. Getting this guy looking back to the original prototype. Okay, so I felt the best method that was going to work would be the transparent overlay. So to match the prototype, I took some transparent green and added some transparent yellow to it to give me a olive green. And it's matching the prototype. Added some thinner to thin it down for the airbrush gun. Mixed it up. Did a little test sample. Everything's looking good. It's about a lime/olive green. Added it to the airbrush gun and we can begin spraying. Did a few test samples on a piece of paper and started off with the hand, just to start off with the smaller part to make sure everything goes correctly. And after a few test sprays, I noticed it was looking too much on the yellow side and I needed it to be more green. The problem is when you're doing test samples off onto the side on a piece of paper, it's never going to look the same as when you're spraying an object that's already been painted. It's going to get a little tinted by the underlying paint that's already on there. So I went back and adjusted my colors, added a little bit more green to the mix, and from there everything was looking good. It was matching the prototype. I was happy with the green olive color I was getting, and now we can continue on to painting the rest of the statue. Here's a look at the forearm so far. Everything is looking good. I'm happy with the transparent overlay. It's not fully covering the shadows or the highlights. I'm still maintaining that, although I'll probably go back at the end and add back a few shadows and a few highlights. But so far, the transparent overlay is working nicely, and we're going to continue that method throughout the rest of the statue. But before we can do that, because the portrait is not separated from the body, I need to mask everything off with some plastic wrap. I'm also going around using some Tamiya tape to seal everything off, as well as some silly putty to get into all the cracks and crevices to make sure everything is protected. Using a wooden skewer, I go around and push everything into place to make sure it's all protected. Once everything is sealed, here's how it's looking, and now we can begin to move on to painting the portrait. When spraying transparents, you want to do it very lightly and very light coats, because if you do go too heavy, you will cover up what's underneath, and that's not what we want to do. We don't want to lose the shadows or the highlights. After the face was misted over, I went back around with a wet cotton swab to remove any of the acrylic paint that got onto the red areas, as well as the metallic plate on the middle of his forehead. I'm able to do that because it hasn't been sealed yet, so I can still wipe it away. And then afterwards, once everything is looking good, I can go back and clear coat the paint, seal everything in using a flat for the skin. And then for the blood as well as the metallic, it was more on the semi-gloss side, so I'll go in and hand brush a gloss varnish over those areas. As for the hand holding the flag, I use my usual methods of masking. It's either going to be Tamiya tape or some type of silly putty. So in this case, I ended up using the silly putty just to mask off the areas around the hand to cover up that flagpole so I wouldn't spray onto the wood and get any overspray onto the brown. And from here, we can start to paint the other hand and tint it that greenish color. Once the parts were all finished being tinted green with the transparent overlay, and if you're not familiar what a transparent overlay is, it's basically adding a medium to the acrylic paint. This way it's not so opaque, it's not so solid when you're spraying or brushing it on. You're not fully saturating the color, it's just finally misting over the surface, and you're still able to see a underlying color beneath it, and it can slowly build up in layers. So in this case, I was able to tint the surface green, but I felt like I did lose a little bit of the highlights and shadows. So in this case, I wanted to add back some of the highlights and shadows. So for the highlights, I went back in with a bone white / tan color, and I'm dry brushing it over onto the surface. With dry brushing, it's using very little paint, and you're basically just rubbing it across the top layers of an object so it picks up the paint without fully covering everything.
Once I was happy with how the paint was looking, the very last step is to seal everything in. This way it's protected. You need to clear coat it, you need to varnish it, and for that my go-to is usually going to be Krylon clear coat. In this case, we're going to be using a flat, and because we're spraying a flat, afterwards I'm going to have to go back and touch up those blood areas as well as the metallic on the middle of his forehead, and for that we'll go back using a gloss varnish and brush it on by hand. I also touched up the pins around the eyeball. I blacked them out. This way the eyes have a floating effect. So with that all out of the way, here's a look at the final results of the project, the before and after. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next project. Take care.